There are moments in life when the ordinary quietly becomes a messenger. What we often dismiss as coincidence may in truth be a gentle knock from the deeper order of existence. The wise do not rush to label such moments as superstition, nor do they cling to them with fear. They observe, reflect, and understand. If certain animals appear repeatedly within your home, do not ignore them, not because they carry magic in themselves, but because they may mirror something within your own state of mind and environment. First, consider the ant, small, almost invisible, yet tireless in its movement. When ants begin to gather in your home, moving in long, disciplined lines, it is not merely about crumbs left behind. It is a quiet teaching of persistence and order. The ant does not complain about the weight it carries, does not abandon its path midway. It simply continues. When you see it, ask yourself, where in my life have I lost consistency? Where have I allowed small distractions to scatter my energy? The presence of the ant invites you to return to discipline, to rebuild your habits one small step at a time. Then reflect upon the lizard. It appears suddenly still and watchful, clinging to walls with effortless balance. Many feel discomfort at its sight, yet it neither attacks nor disturbs unless provoked. It observes, it waits and moves only when necessary. When such a creature shares your space, it offers a lesson in awareness. How often do you react without seeing clearly? How often do you speak before understanding? The lizard reminds you to pause, to become still, to act only when the moment is right. In stillness, clarity is born. Finally, consider the bird that enters your home. It may flutter in confusion, seeking an exit, its wings beating against the boundaries of a place not meant for it. This is not a sign to fear, but a reflection to contemplate. The bird represents freedom, yet here it is, trapped for a moment in a confined space. When you witness this, turn inward and ask, where have I confined myself? What fears, attachments, or habits have become invisible walls around me? The bird's presence is a reminder that the door is often open, yet we forget to look for it. None of these creatures come with intention to bless or harm. They simply exist, following their nature. The meaning arises not from them, but from the awareness you bring to their presence. A restless mind sees inconvenience. A fearful mind sees bad omen. But a mindful heart sees an opportunity to understand. So do not ignore these moments, do not exaggerate them either. Simply observe, reflect, and learn. In every small encounter, life offers a quiet teaching. Those who listen grow. Continue to wonder. Peace does not come from controlling what enters your home. It comes from understanding what arises within you when it does. Small signs carry deeper reflections. Ordinary events, like animals entering your home, are not to be feared or blindly believed in. They are opportunities to reflect on your inner state and awareness. What appears ordinary often carries a quiet invitation to look deeper, yet most people pass by such moments without a second glance. A small creature entering your home, a sudden movement in a silent corner, or an unexpected presence crossing your path, these are usually dismissed as random disturbances. But the disturbance is not truly outside, it is in the mind that reacts without awareness. When the mind is restless, everything feels like an interruption. When the mind is calm, the same moment becomes a doorway to understanding. To live with awareness is not to assign mystical meanings to everything, nor is it to reject all meaning entirely. It is to stand in the middle, seeing clearly without exaggeration or denial. When something unusual happens, the first response should not be fear or excitement, but observation. What is happening and what is arising within me as I witness it? This simple question shifts the focus from the outer event to the inner experience. The event itself is brief, but the reaction can linger, shaping thoughts, emotions, and actions. Often, people search for signs in the world while remaining strangers to their own minds. They look outward for answers, believing something external holds a hidden message meant specifically for them. But the deeper truth is quieter. The world reflects, it does not announce, it mirrors the state of your attention. If your attention is scattered, the world appears chaotic. If your attention is steady, even the smallest event reveals a gentle lesson. When a creature enters your space, it does not come with intention to teach or disturb you. It simply follows its nature. The meaning arises only when your awareness meets the moment. If you are irritated, it becomes a nuisance. If you are fearful, it becomes a bad sign. But if you are attentive, it becomes a mirror. You begin to notice not just the creature, but your own response, your impatience, your discomfort, your curiosity. In that noticing, a subtle shift occurs. You are no longer controlled by the reaction, you are witnessing it. This is where understanding begins. Not in the event itself, but in the space between the event and your response. That space is often overlooked because it is small and quiet, yet it holds great power. When you become aware of it, you gain the ability to respond rather than react. You begin to see patterns in your behavior, habits that operate without your permission, thoughts that arise and pass like shadows. Life does not need grand symbols to guide you. It offers countless small moments, each carrying the same invitation. To wake up, to notice, to understand. The more you practice this, the less you depend on external signs and the more you trust your own clarity. In this way, awareness transforms the ordinary into insight, and what once seemed insignificant becomes a gentle teacher on the path of understanding. Ants symbolize discipline and consistency. Their tireless work reminds you to rebuild focus, maintain steady effort, and not let small distractions weaken your path. There is a quiet strength in the way small creatures move through the world, unnoticed yet unwavering. Among them, the ant carries a lesson that is easy to overlook because of its size. It does not demand attention, yet its actions speak with clarity. It moves with purpose, step by step, never rushing in panic and never abandoning its task halfway. When you observe it closely, you begin to see a pattern not just in its movement, but in its nature. It does not wait for motivation, nor does it depend on perfect conditions. It simply continues. In human life, much suffering arises not from lack of ability, but from lack of consistency. The mind becomes excited at the beginning of a task, full of energy and ambition, but quickly loses direction when obstacles appear. Distractions pull it away, doubts weaken its resolve, and soon the path is left incomplete. The ant, however, does not argue with the path. If something blocks its way, it adjusts and moves around it. It does not sit in frustration or question its purpose. Its focus remains unbroken. When such a creature appears in your home, it may seem like a minor inconvenience, something to brush away or ignore. But if you pause and observe, it reflects something deeper about your own habits. Where have you allowed inconsistency to take root? What small efforts have you abandoned because they did not bring immediate results? The ant does not seek immediate reward. It understands in its own silent way that each small effort contributes to a larger outcome. Discipline is often misunderstood as something harsh or restrictive, but true discipline is gentle and steady. It is the ability to return again and again to what matters, even when the mind resists. It is not built in grand gestures, but in small, repeated actions. Just as the ant carries tiny fragments over long distances, you build your life through small, consistent steps. Each action may seem insignificant on its own, but together they create something meaningful. There is also humility in the ant's nature. It does not compare itself to others, nor does it seek recognition. It fulfills its role without hesitation. In contrast, the human mind often becomes entangled in comparison, measuring progress against others and losing sight of its own path. This creates restlessness and dissatisfaction. The ant reminds you to stay with your own journey, to focus on your effort rather than the outcome or the opinions of others. When you begin to see this clearly, even the smallest encounter becomes a guide. Not because the creature carries a message for you, but because it reflects a truth you already know but often forget. Consistency, patience, and quiet effort are the foundation of meaningful change. Without them, even the strongest intentions fade. So when you notice the ant, do not rush to remove it without a moment of awareness. Let it remind you gently and without words that progress is not made in sudden leaps, but in steady movement. In returning to your path each day, without complaint and without distraction, you align yourself with a deeper rhythm, one that does not seek attention, yet leads to lasting growth. The lizard represents stillness and awareness. Its calm, observant nature teaches you to pause, avoid impulsive reactions, and act with clarity and patience. There is a certain kind of wisdom that does not speak, yet it reveals itself through presence. The lizard is one such quiet teacher. It does not rush through space, nor does it seek attention. It remains still for long periods, blending into its surroundings, watching without interference. To many, its presence brings discomfort, but that discomfort arises not from the creature itself, but from the mind that is unaccustomed to stillness and silent observation. When you notice the lizard, the first impulse may be to react, to move away, to remove it, or to feel uneasy. But if you resist that impulse even for a moment, something deeper becomes visible. The lizard is not disturbed by your presence. It does not panic without reason. It simply observes, conserving its energy, moving only when necessary. In this, there is a lesson that the restless mind often overlooks. Much of human action is driven by unnecessary reaction. A word is spoken and the mind immediately responds. The situation changes and anxiety quickly follows. There is little space between what happens and how one reacts. This lack of space creates confusion and regret. The lizard, in its stillness, demonstrates another way of being, one where observation comes before action, where patience replaces impulse. To be still does not mean to be inactive or indifferent. It means to be aware without being controlled by every passing thought or emotion. When the mind becomes still, it begins to see clearly. It notices details that were previously ignored. It understands situations more deeply because it is not clouded by haste. Just as the lizard waits for the right moment to move, a mindful person learns to act at the right time, not at the first urge. There is also a kind of balance in the way the lizard exists. It clings to walls and ceilings with ease, navigating spaces that seem uncertain or unstable. This reflects an inner steadiness that does not depend on external conditions. In human life, stability is often sought in circumstances, comfort, control, predictability. But these are always changing. True stability comes from within, from a mind that remains grounded even when the outer world shifts. When such a creature appears in your home, it is easy to label it as unwanted. But instead of reacting with discomfort, you can use that moment as a point of reflection. How often do you allow your mind to become still? How often do you act without fully seeing the situation? The presence of the lizard gently brings these questions forward, not through words, but through its nature. In learning to pause, you begin to reclaim control over your actions. You are no longer pushed and pulled by every thought or emotion. Instead, you choose your response with clarity. This does not happen instantly, but with practice it becomes natural. The mind, once restless, begins to settle, and in that stillness understanding grows. Life does not demand constant movement, it asks for awareness. In the quiet presence of a small, watchful creature is a reminder that sometimes the wisest action is to wait, to observe, and to move only when the moment is right. The bird reflects freedom and inner limitation. A trapped bird mirrors how we confine ourselves through fear, attachment, or habits, reminding us to seek our own way out. There are moments when a bird enters a place it does not belong, fluttering through a room with restless wings, searching for an exit it cannot immediately find. Its movement is filled with urgency, not because the space is harmful, but because it feels confined. The same walls that offer shelter to you become barriers to the bird. As you watch it, there may be a brief sense of chaos, a desire to guide it out, or even a feeling of unease. Yet within this simple event lies a reflection that is easy to overlook. The bird is a symbol of freedom in its natural state. It belongs to the open sky, to wide and limitless per aeros ter airins ter vea, where movement is effortless and direction is guided by instinct. But when it enters a closed space, that natural freedom is interrupted. It begins to move in confusion, not realizing that the exit may be near, unseen only because of its panic. This mirrors the human condition more closely than one might expect. In life, people often find themselves in situations that feel restrictive. These restrictions are not always physical, more often they are created within the mind. Fear, attachment, doubt, and habit form invisible walls. Unlike the bird, however, humans can live within these walls for years without questioning them. They grow accustomed to limitation, mistaking it for reality. The door may be open, but the mind does not look for it. When you see a bird in such a state, it invites you to reflect on your own sense of confinement. Where in your life do you feel trapped? Is it in your thoughts, your routines, or your fears of change? Just as the bird does not belong within those walls, your true nature is not meant to be restricted by patterns that no longer serve you. The discomfort you feel when watching the bird is, in part, a recognition of your own hidden restlessness. There is also a lesson in how the bird responds. In its panic, it may exhaust itself, flying in circles, striking against surfaces that offer no escape. This is similar to how the mind behaves when it is overwhelmed. Instead of pausing to see clearly, it reacts repeatedly, creating more confusion. The more it struggles without awareness, the more trapped it feels. But if there were a moment of stillness, even briefly, the path outward would become visible. This does not mean that freedom comes instantly or without effort. Even when the window is open, the bird must find its way toward it. In the same way, recognizing your limitations is only the first step. Moving beyond them requires patience, courage, and clarity. It requires letting go of what feels familiar, even if it is uncomfortable to do so. When the bird finally finds its way out, there is a quiet shift in the space. The movement stops and a sense of calm returns. Yet something remains, a subtle understanding that was not there before. You realize that freedom was never truly lost, it was only obscured. Such moments are not meant to be ignored or exaggerated. They are invitations to see more clearly. In witnessing the struggle and release of another being, you are given a chance to understand your own. And in that understanding, a path begins to open, one that leads not outward but inward, toward a freedom that has always been within reach. Meaning comes from awareness, not superstition. The lesson is not in the animals themselves, but in how mindfully you interpret their presence. Growth begins with observation and understanding. There is a quiet tendency in the human mind to search for meaning in everything it encounters. When something unusual happens, the mind quickly begins to label it good or bad, lucky or unlucky, a sign or a warning. This habit creates a sense of control, as if life is sending clear messages meant to guide or protect. But in this constant labeling, something more important is often lost. The ability to see clearly without distortion. The presence of any creature in your home can easily become a story in the mind. One person may see it as a blessing, another as a bad omen. Yet the creature itself carries no such intention. It does not arrive with a message crafted for you, nor does it act with awareness of your fears or beliefs. It simply follows its nature. The meaning, therefore, is not in the event but in the interpretation that arises within you. When the mind is unsteady, it clings to superstition. It seeks certainty in uncertain things, building beliefs that are not rooted in direct understanding. This can create unnecessary fear or false hope. A small event becomes exaggerated and the mind begins to lose balance. Instead of responding wisely, it reacts based on assumptions. This is how confusion grows quietly but persistently. On the other hand, rejecting all meaning can also lead to a kind of blindness. If you dismiss everything without reflection, you miss the opportunity to understand your own inner patterns. The middle path lies between these two extremes. It is not about believing or disbelieving, but about observing. When something happens, you simply notice it fully, along with your thoughts and emotions about it. In that observation, a subtle clarity begins to form. You start to see how quickly the mind creates stories, how it moves from a simple event to a complex interpretation. You notice the fear that arises without reason, or the hope that appears without foundation. By seeing this process clearly, you begin to loosen its hold over you. You are no longer carried away by every thought that appears. This awareness brings a different kind of understanding, one that is grounded and shut. You realize that growth does not come from external signs, but from internal clarity. The world is not constantly speaking to you in hidden codes. Rather, it is reflecting your state of mind. When you are calm, the world appears calm. When you are disturbed, even neutral events seem troubling. The real practice then is not to search for meaning outside, but to cultivate awareness within. Each moment becomes an opportunity, not because of what happens, but because of how you meet it. A simple encounter can reveal impatience, fear, curiosity, or calmness. These are the true lessons, always present, waiting to be seen. Over time, this way of seeing brings balance. You are not easily shaken by small events, nor are you overly attached to them. You move through life with a steady mind, able to respond rather than react. In this steadiness, there is a quiet freedom, a freedom from unnecessary fear and imagined meanings. What once seemed like signs from the outside are understood as reflections from within, and in that understanding, the need to chase or avoid them fades away. What remains is simple awareness, clear and undisturbed, allowing you to live with greater peace and deeper insight.